to talk a little bit more about Google Forms and the different question types. I've pre-populated a form just to save us a bit of time so we can actually go into more depth about these question types. Remember that you can add a new question by pushing the plus button, which will allow you to add a question. For example, I'm adding this first question here. And then by using this drop-down menu, you can select the different type of question that you would like to ask participants. Let's delete this, and I will show you this in real time. So to do this, I'm going to click on the eye, which will preview the form. Now we can walk through what this actually looks like as someone who's filling out the form. So you've got the title of your form, and then you have a space for a description. If you're having your responses, the name and email address collected, it will actually tell participants this right up front. So this is an example of a short answer question type. You do have the option to add a description, to add a picture to your question, and to add response validation. Response validation is something that you set up on your end as the form creator, and you can perhaps limit the text to a certain number of characters or a certain type of response. Like if you just wanted students to respond to a math question with the number 4 as opposed to the word 4, you could actually say, have participants respond using a number, etc. So that's what response validation is. This is an example of a paragraph question type. You do have the option to add a description, to add a picture to your question, and to add response validation. In my opinion, the short answer and paragraph question type look the same to participants as well as those creating the form. I'm truly not sure as to how different they really are from one another. Here's a multiple choice question type. You do have the option to add a description, to add a picture to your question, to shuffle the order of the multiple choice options. So if you had multiple students sitting in a row taking a quiz or responding to a form, you could have it automatically shuffle the order so that no two questions would look alike. And you can also have users be taken to another section of your form based on the selection that they choose. So in a multiple choice question, you can only select one answer. They just added this. This is actually brand new to me, and I was just surprised to see it. You can clear the selection, which is kind of nice. Prior to this, once you answered a question, you could always toggle between, but I could never completely clear it out. What's an example of a checkbox question type? This is a checkbox question type. You do have the option to add a description, to add a picture to your question, to add response validation, and again, to shuffle the order of the checkbox options. In a checkbox question type, you can check multiple answers at one time, and by clicking them again, it unchecks them. An example of a drop-down question, you have the option to also add a description, to add a picture to your question, to shuffle the order of the options, and to take users to other sections. So this is very similar to what we saw here in the multiple choice. But the drop-down just sort of condenses everything so that if you have a very long list, I highly recommend using the drop-down menu so that it's not overwhelming. If you had something like 50 different answers to choose from, this question would take up the entire page, and the drop-down would just sort of hide all of those options behind that. An example of a file upload, you do have the option to add a description and to add a picture. When you have this type of question, users will be able to add a file from their Google Drive. The file that they add will automatically be put into a folder on your Google Drive. That folder is created automatically when you create this question type. You do have the option to limit the type of file that you want users to upload, how many different files they can upload, and if you want to put a cap as to how large those files are. A linear scale type question. You have the option to add a description, this is the description, and to add a picture, as always. You can also customize the scale. So the scale can either start at 0 or 1, and it ends at either 5 or anywhere from 5 to 10. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all different options you can choose for the end. You can customize the label at the far left as well as the far right. And that's pretty much it for this. Once you select something, just like in a multiple choice, you can only select one option here. You also now have that clear selection, which is super fancy and nice. I love that. A multiple choice grid question type, you have the option to add a description, to add a picture to the question, to require a response in each row, and to limit one response per column. You can also shuffle the row order. You don't have to limit it to one response per column. That's just one of the options that you have. So users can select different options here. But notice, again, with this multiple choice, once you've selected one, it disappears to select something new. And this nice clear selection is here on this option as well. A checkbox grid question. You have the option to add a description, to add a picture, to require a response in each row, to limit one response per column, and to shuffle the row order. So you've got a lot of different options. This is great if you want students to be able to select more than one option per row. So they can select multiple different answers by using this checkbox grid. The example of a date question, you have the option to add a description, to add a picture to the question, and you can either include time with your date, and you can also decide if you want the year indicated or just the date, such as July 10th instead of July 10th, 2020. So users click on the calendar and then they can select their answer. A time question, you also have the option to add a description. This is the description here, to add a picture to the question, and to change from a specific time response to a duration response. So a duration would be like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. If you have this type, which is an actual time, you have to enter all of the digits necessary, and you can change between AM and PM. Other options when you're creating a form, I'm going to go back just to show you where I'm talking about. These are the options that are over here on this right-hand side. So we've talked about adding a question. We're going to go through some of these other options here. So this is an example of add a title and description. So by pressing on the T icon, this one right here, this is what it would look like if you added one of those. If you chose add an image, right here, this is an example. I uploaded this particular image. I did not insert an example of add a video, but if you click on add a video, you'll be able to select a YouTube video or upload from a URL. And this last one, which is the equal sign, which is add a section. Adding a section will always indicate to a user to click on the next button. Oh, I didn't answer this question. And it was a required question. Another required. So this is an example of adding a section. So and when you add a section, it just creates that toggle on the bottom, which indicates to the users that they are going to go to yet another place in your form, which is great if you want to break out different sections. Notice that I was filling this out as we were going along. This is a great thing for you to do as the user of a form. So when you're in your form, to click on the eyeball and kind of walk through the form yourself. You can fill out as many answers as you want. Okay, this is the one that we were working on. As long as you don't hit submit, your responses won't be recorded. So they won't actually show up in your response tab, which is kind of nice if you don't want, if you want to look at your responses as a whole and you don't want to have to eliminate the responses that you made as you were just sort of testing things out. So if I don't hit submit and I go up here to click on the X, it'll just take me out of what I'm doing. If I click on the X, it just takes me out. But notice I had 2 responses before, and I still only have 2, even though we filled that form out as we were talking through the different question types. That's all about question types and a little tip and trick on how to walk your own self through your form without actually recording the responses as you sort of play around and see what your users are going to see.